So hi again, and we arrived to one very expected moment, one of our keynotes session entitled "A Decade of Shiny in Action: Case Studies from 3 Enterprise." It will be presented by Eric Costello. So Eric is an executive director of data science at Warner Brothers Discovery, and currently he's focused on content production. In a previous role, he was a co-creator of a product that quantified the experience of viewing entertainment content, transitioning from a single survey to an always-on, continuously updating survey of the top 1,000 TV shows. And his background is Eric has a PhD in sociology from University of California, Los Angeles, and simultaneously a bachelor in physics and sociology from University of California, Berkeley. He's a co-author of a forthcoming book on data science leadership. Thank you very much for being here, Eric, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I guess a few remarks before my keynote remarks. I was actually a little surprised at first when I was invited to this talk, and then I reflected and I realized that for the last 10 years or so, I've only been using Shiny in Enterprise. So it has turned into a key tool for my work. It's not the only thing I do, but it has been a key tool for my work. So I'm going to take a little bit longer view in this talk. Obviously 10 years to Enterprise is longer, but I also mean sort of the long view. So there won't be programming tips or libraries. I do hope you enjoy it. So, of course, if we're doing something in Enterprise, we have to give the executive summary first. So here's the summary. The prehistoric context, in my case, is that combining R with a graphical user interface was very daunting. And then history changes when Shiny comes along. Interactivity expands. Who can be directly involved with data? And it makes it so that building interactivity with R didn't require a degree in computer science, and we all lived happily ever after. Okay, so that's a short version. Let me spell out what that means. Okay. The year is 1971. You're a statistician. You're working at AT&T Bell Labs. You've got to use computers. How do you do it? You do it this way, with Fortran. Right here is an ordinary least squares regression. One of the simplest things we could do. Takes all this code. This assumes your data is already prepared. You have an X and a Y variable, and it takes all of that. So that's 1971. A few years later, S enters the scene, and your activity looks like this. So what am I up to here? I'm going to make an analogy between S, the predecessor of Shiny. Sorry, yes, Shiny, but also R. And so here's my analogy. First, let's look at what is S? It's a system for statistical computing. It's got an interface to what they call the algorithm, which basically means Fortran. It's portable because it's designed to be used on Unix. It's interactive because you have a command line interface and you can read, evaluate, and print. So that's interactive compared to submitting, Fortran jobs. And now it also inspired R. So the primary author of S was John Chambers, and he said that S and R, and in the book Software for Data Analysis Programming with R, he says S and R provided researchers in many fields with a direct way to implement and share their ideas to the benefit of the whole community. Okay, so how is this related to Shiny? Shiny is an interface to R, and it expands, enables data connectivity. It's portable via a browser. It's interactive because it has a graphical user interface. Statisticians and data scientists not only don't have to be Fortran programmers anymore, but they don't have to be expert user interface designers either. They can use the more simple Shiny tools and program in R to create an interface. So it's a expansion of sharing ideas and the power of R and data to the enterprise community. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about interactivity and why Shiny took off. So before Shiny, creating interactivity was very difficult. It looked a little bit like this TCL/TK output, which brings me great stress to even look at before Shiny comes along. So there were it didn't have standard frameworks. It required a custom mix of libraries and tools. The products weren't easily supported by yourself or people. You couldn't just hire people to do this for you. Now, when Shiny was first introduced, it did kind of look like that upper right graph. It was the UI outputs were basic. There weren't modules. Templates weren't created yet. Debugging was very opaque. But really, none of that mattered because the killer app was solving the event handling and doing the reactive graph evaluation. Okay, so to summarize, Shiny enables R to do for data analytic products what S did for the statistical data analysis, and obviously it includes Python now. Okay, so that's all the preamble. Let's dig into some enterprises. I was actually at this enterprise before 2012, but the story takes place in this time frame. So this is my first foray into using Shiny, and it's pre-release level software almost, which is okay. I'm updating a long-running survey. The survey is about movies, upcoming movies. So people are asked on the phone what movies they're aware of, what they're interested in. So you have movie title, you have different measures, you have different groups of people. It creates many combinations. I did say on the phone, it's 2012, time to get on the internet. So we have to update the methodology. There are thousands of permutations that we've reported on. People use these permutations to compare how their demographic group, their movie, their interest metric. And so the new collection method changed the pattern and level of responses per permutation. So we did a double data collection, and it's time to adjust. And I thought for a long time about how to adjust the incoming data. And finally, taking a hint from the great philosopher Jackson Brown, he said it would be easier sometimes to change the past. So I went and changed the past to match the incoming data. In what environment did I do this? Obviously, never Shiny, really new to R, scale is medium, one user, product lifetime is intended to be a finite lifetime. The development team was me, the project management was me, so very basic environment. What was the value of adding Shiny to this? Why did I need an interactive application? Most adjustments could be handled by the default pattern, but hundreds of them were sort of pathological, and they needed oversight, and they were poorly behaved for one reason or another. And so it wasn't worth writing code to fix each of these because it was a one-time use. Once I adjusted the past was going to be different, but it was going to be a static past. So I need to apply judgment at scale. So I could take each of these, see what its pathologies were, and try some different adjustment strategies, feed that back, look at the result, and say, okay, this is done, move on to the next. So I got through these hundreds of sort of custom-tuned adjustments. For you data nerds, I'm just basically pulling back and less tuned-up adjustments, and maybe just the most generic adjustment by the time I had no reliable signal. Okay, so that got me through that. So let's take stock. Scorecard. I'm going to give myself an A for this. First of all, it's a new kid on the block. It was a great tool for this interactive application. The value was that successfully adjusting the past meant that our clients who are used to comparing to the past wouldn't have any surprises. They would allow us to adopt the new methodology, which they were actually quite scared of. even in 2012. And we collected $5 million a year in ongoing savings. So I delivered a complete documentation, but to my relief, nobody ever needed to follow up. We got past all this, and it became ancient history, and I'm sure that there's not even a digital remnant anywhere left for that. All right. Enterprise 2. It's 2014 when I arrived there, and there's a new product that we're launching. It's one product, and it has 2 applications that support it. But things have changed even in the last few years in Los Angeles. By early 2015, I'm here, helping run and attend an advanced workshop on Shiny, which we had to put the little parenthetical remark, our studio. And so Joe Chang came and told us some advanced topics like debugging and timers on reactivity. So it wasn't very advanced compared to today, but for 2015, it was fairly advanced. So it was my challenge in this new enterprise. Launch a new product that wasn't really able to be delivered in just a plain dashboard, and run the product, because running is actually fairly complicated. So what is that? So it's a survey of all of primetime TV that people watch, but shows, and there are 1,000 of them, qualified into the survey if enough people watch them. So administering the survey, which shows we're in it, was actually required in an analytical application as well. So I wrote the delivery analytical application and the running, the application to run the survey. Not to send the surveys, but to design each wave of the survey. Okay, so what's the environment here? New to R and Shiny, it is still only 2014. More medium complexity, 5 users for the admin app, 50 plus client users at studios. Really the project management was nothing formal. In phase 0, the database was in Excel, so really basic technical environment. No use of version control software or anything, but these tools I mentioned are added, Git, our Shiny, well, at the time it was Shiny Server, we eventually land on Connect. So let's take stock here. Okay, so the value was delivered by quickly being able to deliver an analytical application that replaced giant static, we had many permutations of data. So you would have to pre-compute hundreds of slides, and that wasn't satisfactory for anybody. So with an analytical application, people could go in and do what they want, and it was much more beneficial experience. Less quickly created the administration application. That was a very fiddly process, but it was possible, and it was done by a small development team. Lower grade here because while it did have a client-facing app that worked fine, the corporate environment wasn't ready to support Shiny. It was a little too cutting edge. They pulled back after I left to a white label business intelligence platform. Okay, so they took a long time to do what I delivered in, say, 4 weeks of writing a Shiny application, but they were happy because they could feel comfortable with their solution. The product itself still going 10 years later, so Shiny, even in 2015, did support the launch of a now successful product. Okay. Coming closer to the present, Enterprise 3 and up to the present, we're large, medium, and small now. We have multiple internal projects, multiple clients. We use Shiny for small, quickly building of interactivity. We deliver analytical applications to subject matter experts on various scales. So it's 2019, again, business environment has changed. So we are aligning solutions to business challenges and requirements because our customers are other business units. I walked into an environment where Shiny was already in use. The data science team supported by engineering team and other enterprise teams, and there's formal project management. The technical environment is more complex as well, multi-tenant for the IDE, multiple Connect servers. We're routinely using Git and GitHub, and there's a lot of legacy systems. Pro tip, pulling data out of legacy systems, not just to dump them in Excel and make them accessible. You'll get a lot of best friends forever in a corporate environment. Okay, so even though I'm not done here. I'm going to do the scorecard in progress. Scorecard, give an A. Why? Because Shiny quickly delivering interactivity when that's needed. Remember the Fortran, statisticians not wanting to learn Fortran, our data scientists can maintain focus on data science, and even when we need a polished front end, they don't have to do that. It does support the early involvement of subject matter experts and stakeholders in the proof of concept deliverable, and it integrates well with the corporate tech stack. So it's effective at different scales. We're delivering enterprise class apps as well as quick and dirty proof of concepts. And our apps that if we want to, have longevity. We can start small and grow or not as we need. So now let me consider a little bit more about the future of Shiny in enterprise, how to do this well. Obviously, I like Shiny, I make use of it, but it's always good to pause and consider, am I really using the right tool? Is this the right tool for the job? So, so let's think about that. I'm going to suggest that Shiny is especially useful when we're operating at the frontier. The frontier of ability and understanding. So let me spell that out a little more. There's a three-way intersection between statistical methodological, programming data access, and subject matter expertise. That's a key component of challenging environment. And then we have ideas about desire for change, and that could be evolutionary or disruptive. And we're at the frontier of something, process improvement, understanding using data. Okay, so this is a challenging environment with lots of uncertainty. You don't quite know what you don't know yet. You're trying to establish uncertainty here. It's hampered by uncertainty there. What are the rules? What are the processes? What's the pattern in the data? So to tackle that level of complexity in a complex environment, we often turn to more formal. Remember I mentioned the project management was not formal. Well, we have more formal. So I'm going to talk about the enterprise analytic product lifecycle. And this can be done in various ways, but one way I'm fond of is to divide it up into these four major components. Developing business and data understanding and thinking about how that relates to our goals. And when I say goals, I don't mean just we're still brainstorming goals. We have something tangible that we've identified. We're not quite sure how, we're not sure exactly how it works yet, but we have something specific in mind. We're not just pie in the sky anymore. We're not just dreaming stuff up. Okay, so that first part, we need to understand that better. How does the business operate? What's in the data? How does that relate to the goals? We have a data acquisition, modeling, and analytics solutioning type of activity. We have actualizing and fulfilling, and implementing and improving. So is this process appreciably improved by Shiny? I think you know the answer, but I'm going to spell it out anyway. But I'm going to do it backwards. I'm going to skip component 4. I'm going to work backwards to fulfill, and then modeling and analytics solutioning, and then developing understanding. And obviously, I mean, it's not a linear process. We sometimes go from fulfilling, we think we're fulfilling, we realize we have a gap in understanding, we go back there, we need to do modeling. So it's not that I'm saying this is linear, but these are 4 major activities. So let's move to fulfillment. Okay, so in fulfillment, a basic UI may be adequate. An enterprise class app may be required to consider fulfillment, possibly with custom UI. And yes, Shiny can be used for both. Whether Shiny is a good choice here partly depends on what other teams are involved and their capabilities. It depends on how data science-y the apps are, how analytical they are. If on the spectrum between a pure sort of static dashboard to a very in-depth analytical application, that may be in your decision point. And in fulfillment, front-end developers and data scientists can collaborate in the same repo. That brings benefits for product development cycle. Okay, so that's fulfillment. I'm going to leave that one there. So modeling and analytic solutioning in the analytic product lifecycle. Just going to give some examples where Shiny shines. So products that are heavily analytical, products that leverage the power of R's statistical and modeling libraries, those two are almost tautological. Products that coalesce the data cleaning activities, allowing the subject matter experts to dig into their data, making their data interactive for them without programming. And products like the Enterprise One example, where I am reviewing quickly something the computer can't decide, incorporating my expertise to make a decision and moving on to the next. So Shiny can be very valuable there. And it can continue on in this role of the modeling part to be the delivery platform for analytical products, or if there's some other preferred solution, you can jump off there. So now on to the developing early understanding component. So who's doing this? Citizen data scientists are doing it, full-time data scientists like people on my team, subject matter experts, and what are they doing? Maybe the subject matter experts have theories and patterns that they've observed but don't have the tools or time to explore and formalize. The question on their mind is, what more can the data do? How can I get more value out of it? How can I be more efficient and effective? Conversely, data scientists, to create a good product, they need to be thinking and understanding how the subject matter experts are seeing things. So a little bit of an alchemy there of each person inhabiting the role of the other for a while. And so in this phase, we're bootstrapping our understanding to uncover the potential of data. So here I'm talking about like using Shiny as a proof of concept app. You can expose the data and the tools or possible interactions. You can use preliminary models to show patterns or how outcomes might relate to inputs. And those questions there might be, are the hoped for predictive relationships anywhere in sight? Are there additional possibilities that should be prioritized that we didn't recognize when we first launched this activity? And so I'm thinking about this process, and I have this proof of concept app phrase, and then the minimum viable product, and I came up with a permutation, which was minimum viable interactivity, and can Shiny deliver that? And so here the subject matter experts are thinking about, is the interactivity, are these the kind of interactions that will help me create value? Is this what I need to get from the data? But still, I'm thinking minimum viable interactivity. That's a good phrase. I wonder if I'm the first to think of it. The internet says no. You are not the first. There are two web pages on the internet that have used this exact phrase, minimum viable interactivity. I'm like, oh, darn. All right. There are not many great matches. Well, that's a very poor assessment, because one of these matches is going to be a great match. All right. And it's going to show something very valuable. So, oops, a little too fast here. You are now riding an exercise bicycle, and it's a bicycle attached to a screen in your TV, and you're a game designer, and you're thinking about how to make this work well. So, oops, sorry, I got this right. Okay. Stop. Hand off the keyboard. Okay, so Orb Jeff is asked about whether he's going to use Bluetooth on this game, and he says, no, my goal at this point is to just have the game respond to a person riding their bike and provide the minimum viable interactivity between the game and what the rider is doing in the physical world, pedaling versus not pedaling. I thought, oh, this is perfect. When the subject matter expert is peddling the proof of concept or the minimum app that you've got in Shiny, allowing interactions with the data and some models, not the final models, not the final data, not anything final, but the question is, are these the interactions that are going to help me create value? When I do something in the app, do I move forward in my world? Okay, so that's a great analogy to Orb Jeff's bicycle game, where he comes up with this phrase, minimum viable interactivity. So that's turns out to be a key step in working with the subject matter experts. So let's pause and I'll sort of formalize this a little bit more. Shiny apps can be built by data scientists to provide subject matter experts to interact with their data. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It just allows them to think about whether these are the kind of interactions that will help me create value. What's the value of this? Earlier identification and certainty about the core value proposition of the project, but also maybe you're not maybe, definitely helping fulfill the core mission of S, communicating and sharing. Okay, so minimum viable interactivity sets us off on the right path to ensure that the project is doing what people will actually want, and this will not be an abandoned project once it's delivered and left aside. Okay, so enterprise class solutions. We are obliged to deliver an enterprise class solution in an enterprise. So eventually a fully documented, well-supported, low technical debt product has to be delivered, and Shiny is an option. It may even be an excellent option for many situations. To help here, there are enterprise class frameworks such as Rhino for Shiny app development. They can support appearances well beyond the Shiny basic UI. They provide a robust framework that supports scalability, maintainability, and so making the enterprise more friendly towards this formerly less exotic technology now. We've actually had great success integrating Shiny apps in my current situation. All right, final slide. We've gone from Fortran to S, and then adding reactivity, so that allows us to access the power of R and now Python, and that remains central to Shiny's value. And Shiny continues what S started by bringing the power of data and analytics to an even broader community that is implementing and sharing ideas. So, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Eric. It has been very interesting, and there have been comments. We all like it to see the journey that the long journey that has gone through the beginnings of S to nowadays in Shiny. And yes, so let me see questions for today. I would say while other questions are coming, the first question that you have answered more or less, but is the following. Usually there are many competing technologies, even there are ready-to-go solutions that can compete with Shiny in a specific application or project. So maybe the first question would be, can you imagine a scenario that where you would not recommend Shiny and you would switch to another technology?
I can imagine a lot of those. I don't even have to imagine them. They're presented to me by my colleagues. Over the last week, I've been asked, can I have this in Tableau? Can I have this in Tableau? And so I've been, which is if you're not familiar, a very popular dashboarding BI solution. At the end of the deck, which I didn't present, I actually have a slide on why Shiny is not just yet another business intelligence dashboard solution, just as a disclaimer for future non-believers in Shiny who might run into this. Shiny can build basic dashboards. It has templates, right? It's not really customized to that. So if our clients are they're not looking for that interactivity, they're not looking for that power, you can more quickly build a focused product that's going to be more static, Okay, so in that case, the requirement is for a more static deliverable. Yes, it updates because the data is coming in, but they're not using it to explore as much. It's more reporting. So Shiny can do dashboards, and it can do great dashboards. One feedback we've gotten is it doesn't have enough of this look, or I'm used to this thing from, so there's a lot of fiddliness on the customized solutions for dashboards that our clients might be used to, that Shiny doesn't just support out of the box. So we got the basic dashboard running, and 3 months later, finally the fiddliness is over. And we could have done it more quickly, maybe in a dashboard-focused solution. So it goes back to the slide where I said we're talking about the requirements and what are their requirements. And so I'm actually involved in that discussion now. What are your requirements? What are the kinds of deliverables? What are the things that are going to be routinely processed data versus you're going to enable that exploratory phase? You're going to, it's more, I guess when I first got this job, before I got the job, I explained carefully to the hiring manager that the work I had done at my previous job was not a dashboard. It was an analytical application. So I wasn't interested in writing static-y dashboards. Okay, so it's really there. Now, for the integration to the corporate tech stack, that's been there's a lot of, I would say that's a big issue, but that can be solved. We've solved it pretty well. And the Connect server makes that really, really easy because it handles all of the application delivery aspects. And so they think our app is one app. They don't know we're serving many, many apps within our app. So back to that requirements. If the requirements are for something different, Shiny doesn't support it well, I like Shiny, but I'm not going to force fit Shiny. Okay.
Thanks. So yeah, there's a question more specific to the content of your presentation or to a specific slide that was, why do you think that Enterprise 3 already had accepted R in comparison with Enterprise 2?
Okay.
Do you? And the follow-up question is, what do you think happened to convince them before your arrival?
The hiring manager was already a big R fan. Before we got there, we had the current employer, Warner Brothers, has been fairly cutting edge in terms of studios adoption of being more, not just hiring out all the analytical work. So there's been an internal workflow for a long time that had analytical aspects to it. It wasn't a revolution there. So that was kind of luck. The personalities involved, how I got the job was because that was already sort of settled upon. So I can't, I don't know how to get you to convince your organization to do that. It was luck.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, this situation also happened as well. And another question from Eric Nance is, what advice do you have for ensuring teams don't begin with the off-shelf products like Tableau or Power BI and regret it when they inevitably want to go outside that particular product's capabilities and would benefit from Shine instead?
Okay. Great question. On my mind this week. I guess I don't have really a new answer. I partially answered this, which is that it's those requirements. Like, what are the goals for your interaction? Because I will. If their goals are really static, then I will say, if the Tableau team or BI, we have various. If the dashboarding team has bandwidth and it's static, why do I want to do something that only Shiny can do? But so. Getting them to look over the deliverables that are delivered in the past to see, like, well, how did you get this? How much handwork did you have to do? And then, it's up to you to decide, well, that would be fairly easily accomplished with a Shiny app to eliminate that hand work step. So without that really understanding the requirements, which is kind of new for people when their whole process has been, okay, get the BI team in here, right? If that's their solution, we have a thing and the BI team is going to deliver it, then they haven't started thinking about alternatives. So showing off capabilities doesn't have to be fancy, but so that minimum viable interactivity, getting even just one thing in Shiny, showing how you can directly connect to the database. You don't have to download Excels and do formulas in Excels. I guess that's the big thing that people do is they do everything in Excel, right? And eventually, the whole workflow, the whole department is instead of having Excel be its tool, they're the tool of Excel. And so the whole tail is wagging the dog problem has emerged. So if you can get them to maybe give you some war stories about that, maybe that's an entry point. Okay.
Yes.
Great question. Thanks.
So yeah, I think it might be the last question. That is the following. What are the limiting factors that prevent the widespread use of Shiny in enterprise?
Well, I guess there's two possible limiting factors. If your enterprise is not amenable to it, that's one kind of problem. So familiarity, right? So if picking, do you have the bandwidth to do something to show the value of Shiny to people who haven't seen it before? Making that use case. And that's, it's not guaranteed. You have to be fair about it because they're gonna sniff out putting a thumb on the scale kind of solution. So, setting up a framework that agreed that you're not you can't appear like you're coming in with your pet tool and that's going to be the solution. That's as frustrating as when the BI team loves only Tableau or loves only, some other tool and they're going to use it. So for individual user adoption, that's varied quite a bit. If we make it easy for people to get involved, then they do. We tend to follow the classic strategy of getting sort of the power users, the citizen data science-y types involved early so they can be evangelists and help spread the word. There's always those people who are more interested in that. And so if you don't have any of those, maybe, and you have options for where else to go, maybe prove your case in a more friendly environment.
All right. And yeah, there's another question, or maybe more, a little bit more personal, is how often do you write Shiny code these days?
Not nearly often enough. I looked at some of the talks and, I'm like, wow, there's so much cool stuff going on with Shiny.
That's true.
That it's just, I wouldn't have, the advanced Shiny, like really, it's like a kindergarten Shiny compared to what I've seen you people doing. So, I don't do it enough. Occasionally I do it, but, I'm more likely to just make a small branch off something and fix some problem. I really don't have time. I'm so wrapped up in the data science work and the management. Don't be a manager if you want to keep writing Shiny code. That I don't spend a lot of hands-on time lately.
Yeah. Okay. And well, that would be the last. I think we have asked a lot of questions. It's more about the team. How do you manage your team? Is how does your team help train each other or new developers to have the core capabilities of effective Shiny development?
Great question. So, we actually have a cheat code, which is that we have a certain company that helps us with the harder front end developer activities. So my team, they will write really just using the standard Shiny UI components, just so they understand the basics of interactivity. But I do have them focus on data science aspects. They are writing queries to, if that's useful for inclusion into the Shiny apps. So because of our scale, we can focus back towards the data science, but I guess you can get a long way on the basic Shiny interactivity. I have had some who have taken the Rhino framework and started that as the basis when we knew we would hand it off to a more mature, full-fledged development team. Like, let's start here. It wasn't that hard to start with that template and move forward. So it takes some investment. You've got to invest, but that pays off well in the long run. So we don't have to have a complete refactor. I think that exposure to the reactivity helps them appreciate that writing a Shiny app with a enterprise level reliability and user experience, that's not trivial. You have to consider what you're committing to do that. So if that's a big commitment. And so we've gotten the resources to do that. We could not do it on the size of team that I have that's supposed to be focused on data science.
Yes. Okay. So I think with this, we can close your talk. Thank you very much again. It has been very interesting. A lot of comments from your slides.